Howdy, folks. This is just a reminder that if you like this content, you can help me out by liking, commenting, and especially by subscribing. And be sure to hit the bell notification so you always get notified whenever I have a new video. Hope you enjoy this. Happy Hermit says, why did the Pharisees need Judas to betray Jesus? Were Jesus and the other disciples hiding? Didn't the Pharisees, the Romans, and the Jews already know who he was and what he looked like? Okay, so they some individuals knew what Jesus looked like, and they could have approached him when he was out in public teaching during the week leading up to the crucifixion. Jesus himself points this out. I mean, like, hey, I've been publicly teaching in Jerusalem. You could have laid hands on me at any time, but they didn't want to do that because they were afraid that the crowd was had such strong support for Jesus that they would riot, and they didn't want to riot, and so they wanted to wait until Jesus is in private, and so you'd have to know where he's going to be at night. And that's a bit of a problem because we're leading up to Passover here, and Jerusalem's population just swelled enormously with pilgrims when Passover arrived. It was one of the 3 annual pilgrimage feasts that that all Jews were required to attend. And so Jews came from everywhere. They even came from other countries to be in Jerusalem for Passover. And the city had something like 1.5 million people at Passover, but it was much smaller all other times. And so it was just jammed to the gills. How do you know where Jesus is staying? So that's part of the answer, but it's not all of the answer, because Jesus does something very strange on the night of the Last Supper. Mark tells us that at the time they were slaughtering the Passover lamb. So Jesus and his disciples, they're at the temple, they're slaughtering the Passover lamb, they're getting ready for Passover, and Jesus tells 2 of the disciples, who Luke reveals to be Peter and John, he tells them, go into the city, and you're going to see this dude walking around with water, with a big, jar of water. And this was weird because normally that's what women did. They'd put a water jar on their head and they'd walk around with it and take it home, and fetching water was women's work. So normally you'd expect to see a woman doing this, but Jesus is saying, okay, there's going to be a guy doing it. And so that's a signal. You're going to see a guy doing this. So then follow him home. And when he gets to the house, talk to the house owner and say, where is the teacher, meaning Jesus, says, where is my large furnished upper room for me to celebrate the Passover meal with my disciples? Okay, so this is all clearly been prearranged. There's already a dude who has a room ready for Jesus and his disciples for the Passover. And he's going to send out a guy to go fetch water so that it'll be an obvious sign to lead him back. And so Jesus already has arranged this. He already knows who this guy is. Let's say his name was Judah ben Asher. Okay, so Jesus knows I and my disciples were going to go to Jerusalem. I've already sent a message to Judah ben Asher to have a room ready for us and to send out this guy on the evening of Passover so my disciples can follow him back. Why not just tell Peter and John, hey, go to Judah ben Asher's house and tell him to make sure he's ready? Why not do that? Why to have this a secret of where they're going, even from his own disciples? Even the 12, Jesus kept this totally secret. Even the 12 don't know where they're going to be eating Passover. And rather than just tell them, oh, it's going to be at Judah ben Asher's house, Jesus has them do this thing to reveal that information, and it's all dependent on secrecy. So the answer is he didn't want Judas to know. Because if he just told the disciples, like if he said to Peter and John, hey, go over to Judah ben Asher's house and tell him to make sure he's ready, well, then Judas might have heard that, or Judas might have nipped out for a second as they were leaving and said, hey, by the way, where are y'all going? I just wanted to check to make sure I've got the money to pay whoever it is we're going with. Oh, yeah, we're going to Judah ben Asher. There are all kinds of ways Judas could have found out. And if Judas knew before the Last Supper, then he could have told the Jewish authorities, and they could have been there at the beginning of the meal. As soon as Jesus and the 12 arrived, they could have arrested them all, and they wouldn't have had the Last Supper together, and they wouldn't have had the Passover meal together, and Jesus wouldn't have instituted the Eucharist. And Jesus really wanted to have this last meal, this last Passover with his disciples. And so it appears that the reason for all the secrecy in this incident is so that Judas will not know where they're going to be eating the Passover, and so he won't be able to betray Jesus until Jesus has had the Last Supper. And before we go, just one more reminder that if you like what you've watched, you can help me out by liking, commenting, and especially by subscribing. I'm trying to grow my channel, and I'd really appreciate your help. Thank you, and God bless you.